Okay, let's see if we can get started here, guys. Hi, everyone. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is another Ask Me Anything, and there's a few wee things that I want to go through with you guys. Let me just check. Actually, my audio sounds like I'm speaking double over myself. No, actually, it's okay. Radio. So, welcome. We've spent the last while looking at theory stuff, like all the sort of chromatic harmony and advanced stuff. For grade 6, 7, and 8 theory, like diminished chords, Neapolitan chords, secondary dominants, borrowed chords, altered chords. There's a whole family of chromatic chords that we've looked at. So what I would like to go back to is the trad stuff, because there's been a few questions that have come over the last few days, and actually one that came in today as well, about capo positions and the best keys to play in and the sort of main keys to play in. Somebody was asking about modes and what do they mean and all that sort of stuff. It all is related to each other, so we're going to cover quite a few things, I think. So I'm just going to share my screen and let me check that my audio is working and that you can actually see my screen. Modes and what do they mean and all that sort of stuff. It all is related to each other, so we're going to cover quite a few things, I think. So I'm just going to share my screen. Yep, okay, you guys can see my screen. That's good. I'm always worried that because I'm pressing buttons on Stream Deck here and I'm just making sure that you can actually see. Okay, rather than spending a whole video talking as if you can. Okay, so the very first thing, if I bring up a little handout, I'll be playing all of this on the Bouzouki anyway, but you can do this in any instrument. Okay, musical modes. We'll understand modes first, I think, and then that will get us into keys and capo positions. So some of you guys may already know what a mode is, but if you're not sure, when you're talking about musical modes, a mode is just created by measuring the distance between 8 notes that make up the scale. Okay, so that's the first thing. I'm going to just check my brightness here. Yeah, it looks okay actually. Okay, so the 8 notes that make up your scale, just your do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. If you've studied music in any sort of regimental sort of way, through classical music or lessons on Irish trad, you may have come across these things like, major scales, minor scales, that type of stuff. They're just 2 types of mode. Okay, so that's the main thing, that a mode is basically the umbrella term that we use for loads of different types of scales. And in Western music anyway, music of Europe and North America, we tend to use semitones and tones, the smallest distance between 2 notes. In all classical music and all folk music in the Western world anyway, is a semitone. If you went to Asia, or I suppose India would be the main one with all the hundreds of different types of scales, but also China and Japan would have loads of other scales that we don't use, and they would even have microtones in some other scales, so like the shorter, smaller distances than we would have between the notes. If you ever look at a piano, you'll see that a semitone is basically the distance between one note and the nearest note to it. So on a piano, C to C sharp, the black note would be a semitone. Or even B to C, they're right next to each other on the piano. That would be a semitone. Tones, as you can imagine, are just 2 semitones. So semi meaning half. If you think of like semicircle, half a circle, semitone, half a tone. In America, you'd probably call these steps whole steps and half steps. Same thing. Okay, whole steps and half steps. Okay, so in trad music, we tend to use 4 modes. Okay, we use this first one here called the Ionian mode. Don't worry about the history of where these names come from, guys. It is long, it is complicated, and we can go into it in a different class. Okay, we're not going to cover that today. It's just too long and complicated. It's more of a music history class rather than a practical class. So the Ionian mode, the other name that we would use for that is major. Okay, so you have your Ionian mode, and this is the pattern of tones and semitones that you can get from that. Now, I'm going to demonstrate this using the white notes on the piano because it's easiest. But you can take this pattern here and have any starting note that you like. This starting note here is C. So if you start on C, you're going to end up with C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's your scale, your C major scale, or your C Ionian scale. It's really just this pattern of tones and semitones, and you can apply that to any starting note that you like. Any starting note. Okay. Let's see. We tend to use that quite a bit. That would probably be the most popular mode, the Ionian mode, because we use that for the keys of D major and G major. Okay, those are your two most popular keys. We'll look at them in a wee second for the Bouzouki. Okay, the next one we use is Dorian. Now, Dorian is a little bit different. The easiest way to think of the pattern is just get from D to D. Okay, just use the white notes in the piano for this. But it's really not D to D. It's really this pattern of tones and semitones. Obviously, it looks different than the Ionian one. It should. It's obviously a different mode. But it sounds like this. D, up a tone, E, up a semitone, F, up a tone, G, go up another tone, A, up another tone, B, up a semitone, C, and up another tone, D. So it's tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, tone. Okay, and we use those in, as you can see here, we're going to be using those for A and E. So there's a few keys that we use for this one. A Dorian and E Dorian. I'm just looking to see their popularity. Yeah, they're probably the next most popular after Ionian is your Dorian mode. Okay. There's the Phrygian mode, which we don't use in Irish traditional music. I'm not sure if it's used in Western traditional music, maybe Eastern European folk music. You know, maybe using that Phrygian mode. I wouldn't know enough about it. So if you're interested in the Phrygian mode, worth checking out maybe Eastern European folk musics. So they may employ this pattern of tones and semitones, but we don't in Ireland anyway. Or in Scottish traditional music, or Welsh, or English traditional music. It's all just ignored. And again, don't ask me why. That's another class, the history of it. But it uses this pattern of tones and semitones. So you can see that you're just starting on a different note on the piano here, E this time, and use all the notes from E up to the next E, and all the white notes on the piano will show you that pattern of tones and semitones. Okay? But for traditional music, we don't use it. So I'm just going to put an X through that. So far, we've got 4 different so-called keys, 2 using the Ionian mode and 2 using the Dorian mode. So we're going to try and apply those to D, G, A, and E, this pattern of tones and semitones for the Ionian mode, and this pattern of tones and semitones for the Dorian mode. And you'll see all these accidentals start to appear, like sharps and things. So it doesn't have to be, obviously, it's not every single piece that uses the Dorian mode is starting on D. You can apply this pattern to any starting note, and we're going to be applying it to A, and we're going to be applying it to E. That's what we get in trad music. And then we're going to figure out where does all that go on the Bouzouki. Okay, so where's your capo going to be placed after that? So this is the second most popular. We don't use the Phrygian mode. We don't use the Lydian mode. That's another one we don't use, but it does exist theoretically. And it's this pattern of tones and semitones. So if I zoom out a bit, you could probably see that there's this sort of, I always look out for this group of 3 tones that keep sort of going backwards in the pattern, you know, each time. So yeah, it starts the Lydian mode, the 3 tones, tone, tone, tone. So we don't use it in Irish trad music, so it's just worth knowing that that's there though. The Mixolydian mode, yes, we do use that. We use that in D, particularly. And also, there could be another one. There's A, yeah, the A Mixolydian Mixolydian mode. So there's two places where D is used as a starting note to get the Ionian pattern and also to get the Mixolydian pattern. And A is starting on the Dorian pattern, but there's also an A Mixolydian pattern as well. They both sound very different. Okay, so sometimes when you put your capo down, for example, thinking you're in the key of A, there's two possibilities. You know, is it A Dorian or is it A Mixolydian? And you're going to have very different chord progressions depending on which one it is. Okay, so this is where a lot of sort of the confusion creeps in with trad music when somebody says we're in A minor, and you're not really. It's either A Mixolydian or A Dorian, and the person who says that you're in A minor may not play a harmonic instrument themselves and just think it sounds like A minor, but it's not. So you've got to be a wee bit careful sometimes. Just sometimes you'll probably find after a while that if you play one and it doesn't sound right, that it doesn't gel right, then maybe use chord progressions for the other, and you'll instantly find, okay, I'm locked in now, it works. So it may just be a simple thing of just listening on the spot. The Aeolian mode, the so-called natural minor, that's what we would call the natural minor scale. Just like we have a major scale for Ionian, Aeolian is the natural minor. Okay, and it uses this pattern of tones and semitones, and it's easy to know where that is because it's just A to A, white notes on the piano, and that would get you this pattern of tones and semitones. Okay, now in trad music, the Aeolian mode we use on E and B. So it's probably the least used mode, to be honest, though. E and B would be our starting notes for this one. Okay, and the Locrian mode we don't really use. To be honest, guys, the Locrian mode, I've never heard that used ever. The only time I ever come across the Locrian mode is in this, when we're talking about it, you know, theoretically. I've never seen it used in practice. Maybe because the first note B and the fifth note F forms this unusual sort of diminished fifth. You know, it doesn't sound, you can't really make nice chords out of this mode. Everything sounds diminished or, you know, a bit unusual. Whereas all the other ones, like the Aeolian mode, A to E, A, C, E, sounds like a nice chord. But B to F. So the so-called tonic dominant relationship is kind of absent in this mode. This is probably why it's not used. But if anybody's heard of it in another piece of music, do let me know. I've never heard it in real music before. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's kind of 8 different scales that are used in trad music, but they're spread across 4 modes. Okay, so there's 2 for Mixolydian, 2 for Aeolian, 2 for Dorian, and 2 for Ionian. Okay, so it may feel that you're in 8 different keys, but you're not really. You're just using the same patterns of notes and sounds, just starting on a different note. So there's really only 4 modes that are used in Irish trad music, and each one can produce 2 variants. D and G for Ionian, A and E for Dorian, D and A for Mixolydian, and E and B for Aeolian. And that's kind of it, for trad. If we take this pattern, this Ionian pattern of tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, I don't memorize that for the Ionian mode. I don't memorize any of these patterns. I just know the scales. Scales are far handier to be able to actually play them and know which notes are used in a particular tune and which notes are used to make up your chords. But if you were to take that pattern and just start on D, we know from before that I said up here that Ionian uses D and G, so let's go through it. If you do that and start on D, D to E, as you can see with the wee red dash, will get you a tone. E to F sharp is the next tone. Okay, so if you ever looked at a piano and you'll see that D to E is the tone, you need to go from E to F sharp to get the next tone, because E to F is a semitone. So tone, tone, F sharp to G is a semitone, G to A is a tone, A to B is a tone, B to C sharp is a tone, and C sharp to D is your semitone. So there's your so-called D major scale, or the D Ionian scale. Do the same thing with G. G to A is a tone, A to B is a tone, B to C is a semitone, C to D is a tone, D to E is a tone, E to F sharp is a tone, and F sharp to G is your semitone. And here's this scale. G Ionian, or G major if you want to think of it that way. Okay, the Dorian, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, tone. We're starting on E for this one, and A. So let's do the E one first. So E to F sharp is a tone, F sharp to G is a semitone, G to A is a tone, A to B is a tone, B to C sharp is a tone, C sharp to D is a semitone, and D to E is your tone. That's why it sounds like E minor, but it's not really, you know, you don't mix that up with the minor scales. It's Dorian. If it was going to be E minor, you'd probably have a raised 7th. And then it's lowered coming down. That's the minor. That's E melodic minor. Okay, so that's completely different. Even though it may sound in parts similar, it's a completely different scale. Here's the E Dorian again. So it sounds like a minor, but with a flattened 7th. That's what I think of it anyway. So I think of the Dorian mode as like the minor scale, but with a flattened 7th. That makes it different. Makes it very different, because if you were playing a piece in E minor, it should go something like this. There's your D sharp going up to E, da, da. It's called the leading tone in classical music. Da, da. And it always wants to go up. But if you're using E Dorian, you don't have that. You have this, which creates a completely different chord going up. Da, dum. So you end up with a completely different chord, a D major chord, in fact. Whoops. Classical. B major chord, E minor chord. In trad music, it's more like a D major chord to E minor chord. So a very sort of different sort of sound. Yeah, so it's a wee bit more, so there's a bit more tension in the classical one, because you need that, that needs to be resolved going up, whereas in the sort of modal, that doesn't necessarily have to go up. In fact, if anything, that could go to a different key. You can use that as the dominant to get you to a different key entirely, to G major, in fact. So the D chord there in folk music is a bit more open, a bit freer, whereas in classical music, you have tension that needs resolved. So very, very different. And I know people will say, well, it still sounds like E minor, but it can put people off if they've learnt, you know, well, what an E minor scale is, because they think of chord 5 as being B major. You're never going to play that in E Dorian. You can actually, to be honest, if it may actually sound a bit weird in places, but you're going to be clashing quite frequently with instruments that won't be playing D sharp. They'll be playing D naturals. So you've got to be really careful where you use it, but it's possible, but you have to be really careful. Whereas if you just play D, that's a heck of a lot more popular than going to E. Yeah. Studying unit composition, I had a question. How can Locrian function as a true tonic if its diminished triad is heard only as an unstable resolving to the relative Ionian? Let me see. Yeah, this is the problem, is the Locrian, it is a diminished, it's very unstable. Relative Ionian, resolving to the relative Ionian. I wouldn't say Locrian and the relative Ionian. Let me see. Let me see. When you say relative Ionian, which one are you thinking about? Like, are you thinking like it's relative? Like, if you're thinking of B as being a Locrian mode and its relative would be maybe D, are you thinking? Like D Ionian? Is that the one? How can the Locrian function as a true tonic if its diminished triad is heard only as an unstable? Yeah, it isn't. That's the problem, is that it doesn't function as a true tonic because it's going to be a B, D, and F. We don't really tend to think of keys as, you know, B diminished. We think of a B minor or B major, and that's really it. But again, we're straitjacketing ourselves by discussing modes using tonality. You know, so in the tonal world, you know, major and minor world, yes, B minor and B major, but we don't really have that when you're discussing modes. You know, so we don't really have like a B major or a B minor. You have a B Locrian, but it's only theoretical, this one. I've never seen it used. So yeah, that answers your question. If you ever come across it, do let me know, guys, because it's one of these things that it exists theoretically. It's a theoretical mode, but I've never seen it being applied. I'm sure there are modern avant-garde composers who've tried, you know, messing around with it. You know, it'd be weird for it to be sitting there for a long time and never be used. But someone is bound to have used it. So yeah, you've hit the nail on the head by saying, yeah, how can it be used as a true tonic? It can't. If it's going to end up with this diminished chord, B, D, and F. Yeah, so it's going to be a bit weird using the Locrian mode. Okay, so that is why, guys, when we're talking about E Dorian, be careful that you're not thinking of the minor, because you end up with two different chords. One would be a B major chord, and if you're using E Dorian, you're going to end up with a D major chord. As you can see here, if I zoom in, we have these Ds. There's no D sharps, there's no raised sevenths in Dorian mode. So that's the way I think of Dorian. I think of it as like a minor key, but with a flattened seventh. In the same, you do it for A Dorian as well. That's a very popular key. F sharp, G, A. So A to B is a tone, B to C is a semitone, C to D is a tone, D to E is a tone, E to F sharp is a tone, and F sharp to G is a semitone, and then finally G to A is a tone. So it may sound like, I always put this in, sounds like A minor, but we know it's not A minor, it just sounds like it, because your chord 1 would be an A minor sort of sound of a chord. But chord 5 would be, in the classical world, if it was A minor, it would be in G sharp, E major chord, going up. But we don't really have that. That G sharp, for the same reason that we don't have it in the Dorian mode. We don't use that chord much in trap music, that E major chord. But we do use the G major going to A a lot in Yeah. Okay, so that is your A Dorian. So if Dorian sounds to me, in my head, if Dorian sounds like a minor, but with a flattened seventh, Mixolydian sounds like a major, but with a flattened seventh. So D and A, major, but without the raised sevenths in each one. So Mixolydian mode, as we know from above, is tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone. Don't memorize that pattern. Memorize the scales. Play the scales. D, E, F sharp. So D to E is a tone. E to F sharp is a tone. F sharp to G, semitone. G to A is a tone. A to B is a tone. B to C, semitone. And C to D is a tone. So it's... So there's only one note difference between the Ionian mode on D and the Mixolydian mode on D, and that is one has a C sharp and the other one doesn't. But you end up with very different chords. If you're in the Ionian mode, you should hear the A major chord going to D. If you're in the Mixolydian mode, you'll probably hear the C major chord going to D. So, in fact, I think the one that I do a lot in, and it that actually just make sure and make sure my Bouzouki is actually coming out. I hope it is. I better turn it up actually because I forgot to activate my headphones. So I'm hearing a muffled version of it through my headphones. Oh, there we go. Goodness. Let me just check, make sure it's coming out on the... Okay, it is. Radio. So yeah, if you hear that da 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 da, that sort of sound in trad music. C chord. Today. That's Mixolydian. Oh, lovely. I'm way out of tune. Sorry, guys. Everything's just getting too warm. Tighten it up. So what you're looking out for when you're listening out for like a trad tune that's using Mixolydian is it should sound like it's in a major key. But every so often you'll hear da-dum. So like the flattened seventh going on. If you don't, it's probably Ionian. C sharp. So if I show you what that looks like, if I go over to Bouzouki cam just for a wee sec. And focus in just on there. Here we go. So here's the sort of descending Ionian. So that is your D major. I'm just going to bring up the little app here so you can actually see it and get rid of this. So if we have it here, your D power, usually that would be followed by descending down, and you have maybe some sort of B minor, and then maybe down to G, and back up to maybe like an A power chord, and back up to your D. Yeah, so that's your D major, but your D Mixolydian would be something more like. So it's going to be quite different because you're going to involve the C chord, maybe like a inverted G chord here. Lots of wee buzzes. Definitely need to change these strings. Okay, so it's something worth watching out for, you know, just the audio of it. Can you actually hear it? Oral skills of hearing the actual da da dum in the music. Okay. So that is your let me see if I can get back to my head. There we go. Okay, that is your Ionian and your Mixolydian starting on D. Your Ionian starting on G. If it's in G, there really isn't any other possible mode you're using. It is just the Ionian mode. Okay. For the Dorian mode, yeah, Capo on E for this, Capo on 2 for this one, and you're kind of in a minor key for it, or the sort of minor feel for it. But remember that you're going to have quite a few D chords because you have this D at the top, so you don't have a D sharp, just the ordinary D. Dorian mode on A, same idea applies, except this time you're going to have a few G chords. So it may sound like you're in A minor, but you're going to hear quite a lot of da-dum, or steps going up to A like this. Da-dum. So it'll sound like you're in a minor key, but you've got the da-dum. And the same logic applies. If you're in the E minor key, you're just going to have quite a lot of da-dum. Yeah, something like that. So lots of D's going up to E's. For the Mixolydian mode, there's another one as well on A. This is not as common as the one in D, okay, but it does exist, so you should know it just in case it pops up. It'll sound like you're in A major, but with no G sharp. Okay, so there's quite a few pieces I know that for the whistle that have turned out that way, and they're quite a nice sort of sound to them, because it's rare that you're able to play in a sort of an A major area on the tin whistle unless you've got an A whistle. But when you usually play, you know, tin whistles and flutes and uilleann pipes, you're usually tuned to D, and getting that G sharp is sometimes really tricky, if possible, even if it's possible at all. For uilleann pipes, for example, it may be really difficult to get that G sharps, or not even worth trying. So it's nice when you're sort of in an area, an A, to play a couple of those tunes. There's quite a few of them, and they're probably all fiddle tunes originally that have been changed a little bit to accommodate flutes, whistles, and pipes. You know, they don't have the G sharp. So yeah, anything that's in the A is probably Capo on 7 or Capo on 2. We'll look at those in a minute. Okay, the last one is the Aeolian mode. Now, as I say, this is probably the least used mode in Irish trad music, but it's still there. You still need to know it. And for this pattern of tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, it's a bit of an unusual looking one. You're going to be using this for B and for E, starting on B. So B to C sharp. If I just scroll up a wee bit, hopefully I can get the piano in here. There we go. B to C sharp is a tone, C sharp to D is a semitone, D to E is a tone, E to F sharp is a tone, F sharp to G is a tone, G to A is a tone, and A to B is a tone. So it sounds like the closest thing to minor, I think, without the A sharp to B. Same thing applies. E to F sharp is a tone, F sharp to G is a semitone, G to A is a tone, A to B is a tone, B to C is a semitone, C to D is a tone, and D to E is a tone. So okay, so knowing those knowing those 8 scales will be really, really helpful. I recommend anyone who's learning trad music, if they were practicing it the same way as, say, classical musicians learn their instruments, they should probably try warming up with a couple of scales in whatever key they're going to be playing this accompaniment to, or whatever tune they're playing. Try playing a few scales in that particular mode. So if you're going to be practicing something that's in the, D Mixolydian, and practice your D Mixolydian scale and your A Mixolydian scale. Maybe try moving the piece into that scale to see, does it work? Does it still work? I've tried moving around quite a few tunes on the Practice With Me YouTube lives that I do on a Tuesday. Sometimes I get a lot of tunes that I'm accompanying and I never would play them in that key, so I have to maybe transpose things up and down into different keys and move things around a bit. And I kind of like doing that because it's nice to break free. After, if you've played in these sort of 8 modes for years, you get a little bit sick of them, and it's kind of nice to suddenly, we're in, F sharp Dorian or something, that's really nice. Or we're in E Ionian, so it just makes everything a wee bit more interesting and brighter. But these are the main ones, guys, and if we actually go to this next slide here, I went through some of the books I own. There's the 100 Essential Irish Tunes, 100 Enduring, 100 Popular, and 100 Evergreen. Those are the ones I use over the years for a lot of my teaching for tin whistle, flute, and uilleann pipes. And I just decided one day just to go through those books and pull out all the tunes. These are the most popular, by the way, that you hear everywhere. And every session, every flag competition, every, band, that anyone who's for performing live at a festival, they are all using most of these tunes or variations of them anyway, and they're very, very sort of predictable about what you expect to see. You expect Ionian to be the most popular, and it is. So D Ionian, in this book there was 39 out of the 100, 29 in this book, 34 and 34. So it's by far the most popular for overall. Out of the 400 tunes, because there's 400 in total, 136 were Ionian, so roughly 34%. And if we combine that with the G Ionian, and there's also the A Ionian for fiddle players, that comes to roughly about 67%. So more than 2/3 of all trad music is in this Ionian mode, based on, very basic little research. You could pick up O'Neill's 1001, and you'll probably find, if you were to bother to go through all 1,000 tunes, that about 67 or 66% of them are going to be in the Ionian mode. The Dorian mode, about 17.25%. The Mixolydian mode, less than 10%, and the Aeolian mode, just over 6%. So, yeah, if anyone was saying, like, what's the best sort of keys to learn to play in first, you know, for guitar or for Bouzouki, obviously you would tell them to learn stuff in the Ionian mode first, because they're are going to be the most popular tunes you're going to hear. Okay, so you can see that for each book, 100 Essential in blue, you can see there's the G Ionian, the D Ionian. There was none for the A Ionian. There was a few for the A Dorian, a few for the E Dorian, fewer for the Mixolydian, for D and A. And for Aeolian, there was, I think there was only maybe one in the E, and maybe, what was that, 6 in the B Aeolian. So very, very few tunes in that key or that mode. So yeah, that's just by my own little research. I decided to go through like the top 4 books I've used for all of my teaching, just to see, well, how often do these modes pop up? And you can see everything is skewed towards the Ionian and for D and G. That probably is beginning to change as more modern music and more influences from outside Ireland are, you know, influencing the tradition, and we're combining other modes from other cultures and stuff. So it may change over time. But yeah, if you're looking at just the sort of standard jigs and reels, D and G Ionian are a safe bet to start. Good place to start learning. Okay. So the last little handout here I just want to look at is the capo positions. So once you know about your modes, I've put all the modes here, and even the tin whistle tab and the Bouzouki tab of how to play these scales. You'll see that if I'm going to get my head out of the way, just so, there we go. You can see that if I zoom in, I put in the capo positions next to these modes. The D Ionian mode, you can have no capo or capo on 7. Okay, so why would you put it on 7? So let's look at each of these. So if I was to put on, let me see, no capo for the D, so you'd be starting like this. Okay, so that's your normal D Ionian. If you were to put a capo on 7, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going to be this one here, the second dot. So here we go. The thing I've got to do though is I've now got to pretend that I'm in the key of G. Now this gives a lot of tension to the strings. I'm going to probably way out of tune now as well, because I need to put on new strings. Okay, so it's still in the key of D, but you've just created more, less resonance and more brightness, as I was saying to one of the guys in an email today. Less resonance, but your sound is brighter. So it may be nicer if there's 2 of you playing, you know, sorry, I'm just going to correct my camera here. If you have 2 people playing, it may be nice, you know, that one of you does it high and one of you does it low, kind of a thing. So maybe somebody who's doing it down low, and the other person could maybe add the capo on 7 and try playing different patterns. So that's your D now. So that's your D, G, A, D. But if I take the capo off, I'm just back to normal D. won't be able to see that, but yeah. Okay, so that is your sort of two main places then for D. Your capo will be either on 7, pretending that you're in G, as we saw there. Oops. Or you're going to have your no capo at all and just let the strings resonate out completely. So what do you prefer? Do you prefer lots of resonance, no capo, or do you prefer more brightness, then add capo on 7? And you can, if you follow this blue line across, you'll see which notes are being used in the scale. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. C isn't, but C sharp is, and D is. So if you follow these lines, these lines will tell you which notes are being used in the scale. So these two on this side and all of these on this side. Okay. For D Mixolydian, the C sharp is no longer used, but the C is now used and still goes up to D. Again, probably the best thing for this one is no capo, but you could try it with capo on 7. I just never do. There's no real reason for me to change that, to put the capo on 7. If I was to try it just for the crack, just to see what does it sound like if I was to try and do something in that key. Let me go back to Bouzouki Cam. Okay. Yeah, it's quite restrictive because the chord that I'm looking for is that, or C chord. So it's hitting mandolin territory, which is obviously doesn't suit this instrument, it suits the mandolin. Okay, so not really. I still don't really like the sound of it with the capo on 7. It's possible if you're stuck, want to have a go at doing that. It is possible. I think you just have far fewer choices when you start putting the capo on 7 for D Mixolydian. For E Dorian, capo on 2. Now, E Dorian and capo on 2 and E Aeolian capo on 2. Basically anything to do with E capo on 2. Okay, so that for me, the E stuff is capo 2. But there's nothing to say that you couldn't try it without a capo at all. I mean, I know people who try playing, or, you know, play a lot of the famous sort of jigs and stuff and slip jigs and reels just with no capo at all. So, for example, the you know, Kid on the Mountain. Is it Kid on the Mountain? Yeah, that sort of, you know, just with no capo. So you're actually just playing your normal, you know, E minor chord, you know, on the 9th fret, down to your D, down to your C on the 5th fret, back to D on the 7th, back to E minor or E power chord on the 9th. If you were to put your capo on 2 though, oof, there we go. You can still play that cap as if it's the 9th fret, but the capo's on 2s. But it allows you to play the E with just one finger now. And now your D can go there, and your C can go there. Yeah, so I think it sounds better, obviously, to put the capo on 2. You get far more resonance, and you're not giving up, you know, it adds a little bit of brightness, and you're not giving up much resonance at all, because it's just going to capo on 2, that's all. It's only when you really start adding the capo on 5, 7, and especially anything above 7 that you're losing a lot of resonance, because the strings are now so tight. You know, so it's up to yourself. What would you prefer? Okay, so I'll just go back to the handout here. So anything for E Aeolian, E Dorian, capo on 2, capo on 2. It's not going to change. The next one probably would be G. G, no capo at all. So if I show you what that looks like, you can just play it, you know, from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so yeah. Or you can do it like, you know, with like a G power chord here. So no capo, lovely resonance, lovely and open. But if you add, as it says there, the other one you can do is capo on 5. Yep. And pretend you're in D. I'll have to maybe change the camera so you can see it a wee bit better. There we go. And this time you're going down. So you go down for when you add the capo. So that's just your G. So yeah, if you prefer it that way, capo on for like going down, or capo off going and then just ascend, go upwards. So it might be nice to have, you know, if there's two of you playing, one person's doing it with no capo going up, and the other person is doing it with the capo on 5 going down and pretending they're in D. Yeah, so both work quite well for G. I would say I would do half and half. It depends on whether or not who I'm playing with. If there's like loads and loads of other people who are playing the melody, I'd probably do it with, you know, just capo, no capo at all actually. Just let the accompaniment ring out a bit more resonance. But if there's quite a few you know, accompanists to the tune, if there's like another guitar player and, you know, they want me to play or they want more volume, I'd probably add the capo on 5 just so I don't sort of clash with the sound of the guitar. The guitar can do its own thing and, you know, do a lot more lower chord progressions, and I'll do like the higher stuff when I put the capo on 5. So yeah, G's a lovely one because both of them work really, really, really well. No capo or capo on 5. For A, capo or no capo? That is the question. No capo or capo on 7. Yeah, there's a couple of ways of doing this. There's actually a third way for doing A Dorian or A Mixolydian. So I'm going to show you guys like a third way that's not in this handout of doing A. It's rare, but you know, it's no harm in knowing it. So you could, for example, put your no capo and just do this. So like starting on your A power chord, you know, so starting on this. Going up. So it's almost like a B minor to C to D to E so da 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 dum da 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 da. So you can do it without any capo. possible. So yeah, you can also add your capo on 2 for A. And play as if you're in G minor. If you really do want that sort of real, quite a sad, definitely an A minor sort of sound. Because you have that A minor chord, whereas if you take the capo off and do it like with an A power chord, that could be like an A sort of minor sound, but it could also be a Ionian. So A, B, C sharp, D, E, A. A bit more major. And the sort of more minor sound. Yeah, so the no capo for A can get you 2 different sort of sounds, 2 different qualities, modalities, or 2 different feelings to the piece. Do you want something a bit more serious and a minor feel, or something that's more positive and happier sort of major feel? Yeah, both of them can be done without the capo. But as it says in the handout here, for A, no capo or capo on 7, I probably do it more often than not capo on 7. So if I just add a capo on the 7th fret here, I know it kills the resonance. Okay. Oh, I definitely need to chin this. But you get the idea, having it up high. Even though it's out of chin, it still will, it definitely will sound nice if you have nice new strings. I'm going to change these strings today. Okay, so yeah, that is 3 possibilities. Capo on 7, okay, or capo on 2 and play as if you're starting in a minor, or no capo at all. So no capo, capo on 2, and capo on 7. Whichever way you want to do it, it's up to you. You should know a chord progression for each one of those to give you an idea of what the overall sound is going to be. So for this one with no capo, da 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 dum, I think of the bass, the descending scale, going up an ascending scale. Okay. So if I put the capo on 2 this time. Yeah, so that's another possibility. And as I say, capo on 7 and just descending. Better show you. Yeah, so it does have a very different effect to the instrument and the sound that you get if you're going to put the capo like at high up onto 7. Getting back to the handout, yeah, so we've done, I think the only one left is B. I never really use a capo for B at all for a very good reason. That when you're in an Aeolian tune, like E Aeolian or B Aeolian, you do tend to go to the relative Ionian. Okay, so as someone was asking earlier about, the B Aeolian, or I think it was B Locrian actually, you do tend to go to the relative Ionian. So if you're in B Aeolian, you're going to end up going to D Ionian in the second half of the tune. I would say about 90% of the time. So these tunes that are in the Aeolian mode are never in the Aeolian mode for long. It's rare to see a tune that's in the Aeolian mode stay in the Aeolian mode. It usually wants to get out of it quite quickly into the Ionian mode. So if I just showed you guys what that will look like with no capo, let's go down low. So a B minor. There we go. Into the D Ionian. And for that, so if you ever start a tune like in a sort of minor chord like that, and it's a B minor chord, bear in mind that you may not be in that mode for very long. It may only be for the A section of the piece, and then for the B section, you're now in D Ionian. So you do change mode sometimes in trad music, but these, as I say, these modes are so rarely used. They make up, just over 6%, according to my very unscientific research. They make over 6%, just over 6% of the most famous trad tunes, the top 400 trad tunes anyway, according to the 100 enduring, the 100 essential, the 100 evergreen, and so on and so on and so on. So, is it worth learning the actual scale of this if you're not going to be in the Ionian or the Aeolian mode for long? It's still worth messing around with it. I think, get a couple of chord progressions handy for the Aeolian mode, both the B version of it and the E version of it. If you're in the E version of it, as I say, anything in E is capo on 2. So you should be able to hear the difference between the E Aeolian and the E Dorian. There's no other B, by the way. It's just B Aeolian, that's it. So anytime you start off in a B something, B Aeolian is going to be your mode. It's not B Mixolydian, it's not B Ionian, it's not B Dorian, it's just B Aeolian. So all tunes that start off with that B. Do-do-do-do-dum. That sort of sound, your ears being pulled towards B, it's always going to be Aeolian. But for E, it could be E Dorian or E Aeolian. Well, listen out for the second half. Does the second half sound like it's gotten brighter and went into the Ionian mode? In this case, it will go from E Aeolian to G Ionian. So it'll start something like this. It's so rare that you have any of these tunes in this key. You see the way you're now in G Ionian? Nah, I probably wouldn't do that high. That's your Ionian. And your Aeolian. So it should go da da dum da 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 yeah, there's going to be a change in the B section. Yeah, it's a tricky one, but it's worth learning still. Just a couple of chords, couple of chord progressions in that key of E Aeolian, because you will come across it the odd time. When I say the odd time, it's one of the rarest of all. I mean, how many times do we see E Aeolian being used? Yeah, B and E Aeolian are just so rare. In fact, the B Aeolian is even rarer. 4% for E Aeolian and only 2.25% for B Aeolian. So it's strange because the most popular is D Ionian by far. It makes up 34% of the trad tunes I looked at, D Ionian, and yet it's so called relative minor. The B Aeolian only makes up a fraction of that, like a titchy part. You'd expect that this would be the next most popular after, well, D Ionian. It's relative, so-called relative minor, like a B sort of minory sort of sound. The closest thing we have in trad music would be the B Aeolian, and it's the least used of all. So worth keeping an eye out for that whenever you come across it. It's super, super rare. Okay. Right. So that is our look at modes, guys. Modes, modal scales, and the so-called capo positions for all of these. That little one you guys see here, this little handout here, that's probably the most used handout I would have for trad music, because it's not just that it has all the notations for tin whistle and for bouzouki scales. It has the ABC notes as well, and it has the notation, what they look like written down. So most trad music will be between this D just above middle C to this high B. So it's like an octave and a half, or just an octave and 2/3, whatever. Sometimes it does go up to a full 2 octaves. You do have like a high C and then the D again, but nearly all trad music is restricted to this high B because of the tin whistle, flute and pipes. That would be its normal highest note. You can go higher, but this is the normal highest note. Expect to learn this and expect to play it in all jigs and reels. You'll come across it frequently. It's rare you would come across anything higher, and super rare to come across anything lower unless you're playing fiddle or accordion tunes that can go lower. Okay, so radio. Well, anyway, I'll let you guys actually hear some of the things I was working on today, just to give you an idea of capo positions. Like, what happens if you want to go beyond that? You can. Move my bouzouki out of the way. So let me see if I just go back to bring my head back in for starters. There I am. Okay, so I'm just going to close these guys down for a wee sec. Not save anything. Some of the things I was working on today, just for YouTube shorts and stuff, just to sort of summarize a lot of the videos that I make. The last 2 that I'm going to be uploading pretty soon. The Castle Jig was 1, and let me just check. Sam Cormier. I was not sure how to pronounce this. I'm still not. I've looked it up on Facebook and YouTube and other places to see how you pronounce this guy's name. So please correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I think it's Sam Cormier, who's a really fantastic musician if he's writing stuff like this. But this is the reel that I was making of his tune, and there's a really freaky picture of me playing it. interested to see what that sounds like. Loud enough. Okay. Yeah, so you can see here that in this one that I'm using, I've got Capo on 2. So obviously it's E something. This is an unusual one because, as I say, not all fiddle and accordion players are going to stick rigidly to those 8 modes or 8 scales that we looked at today. Actually, 4 modes, 2 scales for each one. Sometimes they're able to do loads of other things, especially fiddles. They're very versatile, so fiddle players can play loads of different keys that, you know, tin whistle, uilleann pipe, and flute players like me can't play in. So I always try to push myself every week to learn something like this. I had no idea what this tune was until yesterday, so I had to learn the tin whistle to it. I was doing that today. I added the tin whistle to it, and I had to come up on the spot. It's always a bit nerve-wracking doing this online, coming up with the accompaniment to what Olivia Barrett, the fiddle player, is playing there. So she's playing it in E Ionian. Now, as I said to you guys, D and G Ionian are the standard. They're the normal. But don't always expect to be stuck in those modes and those particular tunings, because fiddle players can do anything. Almost anything within reason. So she was playing a tune there in E Ionian. But what I've done is I just add the capo to 2 because I know it's E something. Isn't it? Yes. So it's E something. And then I just listen out for, well, does it use that da 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 da? Oops. That's the key. Oops. Can't see my keyboard. There we go. Keyboard's under the desk, so sometimes I can't see it. So that's what I heard when she was playing. Now, she could have been playing, in which case that's Mixolydian. Da-dum. So I'd expect to add in more D to E chords. But it still have the capo on too. I don't have to change much. And if she had been playing this, the Dorian mode, yeah, then I probably could just easily change over to that, but it didn't sound da da dum. It definitely sounded ba ba ba. It completely changes the mood. For this reel, the first pattern starts like this. Okay, so da da dum dum. So that's what I just wanted you guys to see that, just to know that, you know, in the real world of playing and accompanying in trad music, be prepared to know what to learn. Obviously, you need to learn the standard stuff first of all, but be prepared to apply it to any other key. So the Ionian mode, if you can do it in D and G, and you're just adding the capo on, you know, 2 and just playing as if you're in D, it shouldn't really be anything extra you have to learn. It's just a sound you have to get used to, and you know, you're using new frets and maybe slightly new patterns, and it may sound brighter or a little bit less resonant that you're used to, but you just need to be a bit flexible, you know, especially if you're playing with fiddle players and accordion players and piano players. My goodness, they can play anything, I suppose. So yeah, that's just the Sam Cormier. Cormier, I think it's Cormier. I think he's French Canadian. So, correct me if I'm wrong. It's I hate when people sort of, you know, get my name or misspell my name. So if I'm doing that, I'm really sorry. I ever do apologize. So do let me know. So Sam Cormier's real. The other one then, that I'm also going to upload pretty soon, It's actually a good few weeks ago. Castle Jig, Sean Ryan's Castle Jig. Where is it here? Is this it? There's another freaky picture of me. Oh, we'll have to change that by Sean. So the B and the Y are out the whole way through. Well. Oh goodness, turn it down a wee smidgen. That was a tricky one. That's an F sharp Dorian. So remember, as I say, Dorian is the second most popular after Ionian, and you're used to doing that on E and A. So we're doing it in F sharp. So the E major chord. If it was classical music, that would have been, and you need to have done a C sharp major chord. But this is modal. So always look out for that seventh to help you out. You know, you'll hear it if it sounds like it's in a minorish key, but you have a flattened seventh. That's your Dorian. If it sounds like it's in a major key with a flattened seventh, that's your Mixolydian. And basically, the Aeolian stuff is super, super rare. You know that you would, when you learn the Aeolian stuff on your instrument or on the bouzouki, if you're accompanying the tune, it's going to be so unusual for you and such a unique experience that you won't easily forget it. You know, you'll be so used to doing everything in the Dorian mode that when you finally hit the Aeolian mode, you'll be thinking, oh, this is different. So whatever tune that you learn first time, whatever tune you come into contact with the Aeolian mode, commit that to memory and practice that frequently, because it's going to be rare, and you don't want to learn something about the Aeolian mode and then not use it for maybe ages, and then when you have to come back to it, you've forgotten it. So do commit it to memory. And this one, Sean Ryan's, the Castle Jig, you guys can see that I needed to put the capo on 4 for that F sharp minor, or F sharp Dorian. Usually I'd have it on 2, you know, for E, or maybe on 7 for A. So to have it on 4 is a bit unusual for me. As you can tell, I was struggling a wee bit there. Oh, it's not. Video's not working at all. There we go. So always be on the lookout for those walking bass lines, guys. Da, da, dum. Not. There's no E sharp. So the chord 5 is the C sharp minor, the F sharp minor. Classical. We'd have an E sharp going up. Classical trad music. Da dum. And more often than not, it's actually this. Da, E major going up. Da, 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 da. Okay, so they'll be up, guys, on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and everything over the next day or two, as soon as I can correct my spelling. Okie doke. Radio. So guys, that's basically as much as I wanted to cover, and a wee bit more actually. But if you have any other questions, if there's anything that you're interested in as regards music theory or instruments, you know, any questions you have about how to play bouzouki or piano or, you know, tin whistle, or anything that you're interested in buying and you want some advice, or even if you're interested in how to use stuff you already have. Like, I know some students who are doing GCSE and A level with me found using MuseScore particularly tricky. So if you're using software for the first time and I may already have it, and you're not sure how to use it, or you're finding a particular thing tricky and you have a question, yeah, send it to me and I'll see if I can figure it out for you. And if not, we'll just keep on going with the stuff that students have asked me way back in the past. These are all things that have built up over time that I never had time to make a proper video for. Okay. So what we'll do, guys, is we'll leave it there for today, and let me know if there's any other questions. If there's anything else you're interested in, get in contact, or just leave a comment, or just send me an email. Head on over to my website. So that's topscoremusicacademy.com. My email, info@topscoremusicacademy.com. Like and subscribe as well. And I'm just going to put all of my contact details in the chat there if you need to get in contact with me in any way. There they all go. Okay. So we'll leave it there, guys. I'll see you next week, and I'll be doing practice with me as usual on Tuesday at 6:15 London time, or another one of these next week at 5 o'clock London time on Wednesday. So Tuesday or Wednesday, take your pick, and I'll see you again next time. Bye, guys.